There's a version of something most men do that happens so fast you barely notice it. Someone asks how you're doing, and before the real answer even fully forms, before you've actually checked, something else comes out. Fine, good, busy. The word arrives automatically, like a reflex, like blinking, and the conversation moves on, and you let it, and part of you is almost relieved. But another part noticed what just happened. You had something to say, and you didn't say it. This isn't about being closed off or emotionally unavailable. Those are the labels people reach for, but they don't actually explain anything. They describe the behavior without touching what's underneath it. Because for most men who go quiet about what's difficult, it wasn't always like this. There was a time when talking felt more natural. Something changed, and it changed so gradually that most men couldn't point to exactly when it happened. Here's where it gets interesting. There's a term in psychology called emotional socialization, the process by which we learn, usually in childhood, which emotions are acceptable to express and which ones aren't. Most of this learning doesn't happen through direct instruction. Nobody sits a young boy down and says, "Don't talk about being scared. Don't mention when something hurt. Stay composed." It happens in subtler ways, through the reactions other people had, through what got laughed at and what got respected, through watching the men around you and drawing your own quiet conclusions about what a man is supposed to carry and how he's supposed to carry it. By the time most men are adults, the lesson is so deeply embedded it doesn't feel like a lesson anymore. It just feels like reality. Talking about problems feels unnecessary, or self-indulgent, or like a transfer of weight onto someone who doesn't deserve to hold it. That last one is worth pausing on, because one of the most common things men say, when they say anything at all, is some version of, "I don't want to burden anyone." And on the surface, that sounds considerate. It sounds like awareness of other people's limits. But look at it from a different angle, and something else appears. Believing that your experience is a burden assumes that what you're feeling isn't worth someone else's time, that the cost of hearing it would be too high, that the people who say they want to know you don't actually want to know this part of you. That's not consideration. That's a belief about your own worth that got buried so deep it started masquerading as thoughtfulness. Psychologists who study male emotional health have observed something they call normative alexithymia, a pattern where men are not clinically unable to identify or describe emotions, but have been so consistently discouraged from doing so that the language itself becomes unavailable. The feelings exist. The words for them don't come easily. Not because something is wrong with the man, but because a particular kind of fluency was never practiced. You can't speak a language you were never allowed to learn. And here's what that costs, not just in the abstract, in practice. When the only people who know what's actually happening inside you are you, the weight compounds without release. Problems that might have shifted through conversation stay fixed. Anxiety that might have reduced by being named stays nameless and therefore bigger. The research on this is consistent. Social support, including the simple act of putting experience into words with someone who can receive it, changes how the nervous system processes stress. This isn't about emotional processing as self-improvement. It's biology. It's the difference between a system that has somewhere to discharge and one that keeps accumulating. But the silence has its own logic. Because the vulnerability of talking requires a belief that it will go somewhere safe. And many men have tried, maybe once, maybe more, and found that the landing was wrong. The thing they said got minimized, or turned into advice when they needed something else, or made the other person uncomfortable in a way that made them feel responsible for managing that discomfort. And the lesson the brain drew from that experience was simple and lasting, not worth the risk. The brain is very good at protecting you from pain it remembers. It's less good at distinguishing between the situation that caused the pain and every situation that resembles it. So the silence continues, not because nothing is there, because something was there once, reached toward someone, and came back without landing properly. This is what most conversations about men and emotions miss. They diagnose the silence and prescribe the opposite. Just open up, just talk, just let people in, without asking what the silence has been protecting. Without acknowledging that for many men, the quiet wasn't chosen out of weakness. It was chosen out of a kind of logic that made complete sense given what had happened before. The wall wasn't built to keep people out. It was built because something got in once and it hurt. And here's the quiet realization that changes everything. The version of strength that requires silence, that measures itself by how little you need, how much you can carry alone, how long you can go without breaking. That version was never actually strength. It was endurance. And endurance without release isn't resilience. It's It's accumulation. The man who never talks about his problems doesn't have fewer problems. He has the same problems, and no one who could help him carry them.